Hello, everybody. Today, this is lesson 12. I'm going to talk about the 5-minute pitch, which is due, believe, June 26th. This is a podcast. This is you recording your voice, explaining your pitch, no longer than 5 minutes. 5 minutes, all right, is the very top. So what is a pitch? This is at the very core of what everybody does in our work. Writers, directors, producers, everybody who's wanting to get something made, whether it's a play, whether it's a movie, whether it's a new TV show, a streaming show, whatever it is, they have to go to someone who's got the money and the power and the ability to greenlight this thing, and they have to pitch it. They have to express it and explain it and get someone's interest to ask more questions and to actually follow through with it. So there are several different types of pitches. There's one called the elevator pitch, which is like you were meeting someone in an elevator. It's a minute, maybe just a little bit longer. Then there's the 5-minute, and then there is the longer pitch if they actually call you in for a meeting where you sit down and explain in much more detail about what it is you're trying to do. So this is what takes place in the 5-minute pitch. This is what needs to take place in your pitch. So you need to know your story really well. You need to know your screenplay inside and out, all right? So you are going to start off as explaining this world that you've created, okay? You don't want to live there for very long. You don't want to belabor everything in to get into all the details and all of that. You want to explain the world as quickly as you can. So you're essentially following that arc, you're following the beat sheet, and you're picking the high points that you want to hit in that 5 minutes, okay? And it needs to be very clear and you need to be very specific. So the world where this whole story takes place, you start off with that and you get to explaining. Explain to us what the main character is like and what their life is like, their normal world. Just like we've been talking all along in this class, the normal world, and then you have to explain the catalyst that disrupts this normal world. What occurs? What is the call to action? It's so important for you to really pay attention to that, okay? All right, so stay focused on hitting those high points. You get to the catalyst, and then you get to that Act 1 climax before it breaks into two and gets into your B story, all right? What is that high moment that occurs before we move in to the next bit in our structure, in our action, okay? That's something to hit as well. Act 2, how does that kick off? Now, you don't need to tell me this is Act 1, this is Act 2, this is Act 3. Don't need to do that in your pitch. This is just for you to think about in the structure. So, do they meet someone new in Act 2? Is there a discovery that's made going into Act 2? What occurs? Because remember, it brings in something new. So you hit some high points there in that section. Again, you don't want to belabor it. You only have 5 minutes, okay? It's not a lot of time really to explain your story. What's the climax of the Act 2? And then you go into that dark night of the soul moment and what pulls the protagonist out of this. That is so critical. So what shoves the protagonist into this dark night of the soul, beginning your Act 3 section of your story, explain just how far your protagonist goes, how low, how much is taken away, how much they've lost, how dark it looks, how there is no possible way that we can think that they can even come out of it, and then yet they do. There's something that occurs, there's something that happens that pulls the protagonist out of that, okay? and then you break into that 3 and you explain to us exactly what takes place and how it is all wrapped up and how the new world at the end is for our protagonist. So you're essentially following the beat sheet, but you're picking certain things to discuss. You can't talk about every single page, every single moment, every single detail, every single nuance. Not at all. So it might be a good idea to kind of outline some of these things before you record, okay? So here are some tips. Make sure we're clear about the genre. What exactly is this story? If I'm confused, it's a romantic Western comedy sci-fi thriller, what? Be very clear about the genre. Guess what you should focus on? Conflict. I'm telling you, that's our job. Everything we do is about conflict. In your pitch, it's about conflict. How this catalyst creates conflict, how this conflict creates more conflict, this builds more conflict, on and on and on to the end before we actually resolve it. Focus on what is most important in this 5-minute pitch, and that is the struggle. That's the conflict. Focus on the main characters and them moving through these conflicts, all right? Don't get bogged down into the quagmire of details, because if you get bogged down, I'll get bogged down. And you may want to do it a couple of times out loud before you actually record it. Have someone listen to you and give you some feedback on how they thought you did with it, okay? It's good to start practicing. It's good to start now, especially for those of you who want to continue on with this. And for those of you who are filmmakers who hope to make it to your senior year, fingers crossed, you're going to have to come in and give me a 5-minute pitch for your senior practicum 3. Everybody's got a pitch. Every class that we have, we're trying to build in pitches where everybody's having to pitch, because this is the very core of what we do. Same thing happens in theater. Every medium deals with this, okay? So again, pay attention to the world that you've created, explain it, the catalyst, the conflicts in each of the 3 acts and how it resolves itself, how you've got it sewn up. Focus on the conflict, wrap up all your ideas, and that's your pitch, okay? If this is confusing, shoot me an email. We can discuss it further, or maybe in one of our Zoom meetings, we can talk about it, okay? 5-minute pitch.